All right, here's the high fire glaze lecture part 3. Again, we're going to start by realizing that silica, flux, and kaolin, or clay, right? Glass former. The flux helps melt the glass former. That helps stabilize the glaze, meaning it doesn't run off the pot. Also, it changes how the glaze looks, and it also helps keep everything buoyant in the bucket when you mix it up. Now remember, we talked about in part 1 that there's a material that comes to us out in nature called feldspar that has all 3 of these things in it. So a lot of times our glaze recipes start with feldspar as the first ingredient. We are going to talk about a 1, 2, 3, 4 Celadon glaze. It's a really old glaze recipe, probably one of the first high fire glaze recipes. And it's really neat. Sometimes I call it the 4, 3, 2, 1 Celadon. Now remember, this is cone 10, right? And the reason I call it 4, 3, 2, 1, because I like to write my glazes in descending order. All right, so these are parts by weight. They could be grams. So we could say 40 grams, 30 grams, 20 grams, 10 grams. So this glaze is 4 parts by mass feldspar. All right, and then it is silica. Right? Silica is the thing that forms the glass. Remember, it's ground up quartz. Now this one is something called calcium carbonate. And what this is this old decayed shell matter, and it is a flux. All right, calcium carbonate is a flux. And then, of course, we need kaolin, or clay, in the glaze as well. Now this feldspar, for this type of glaze, we have to know that this is potash feldspar or potassium feldspar, all right? So it's really neat because I could just add zeros to this and then it adds up to 100 parts or 100 grams if I was doing grams, right? So basically, this high fire glaze recipe, a 1, 2, 3, 4 Celadon glaze, a cone 10 Celadon glaze, is what all the glazes that we use in the shop are kind of loosely based on. So it's really important. It may not mean that much to you guys right now, but hopefully as you continue in ceramics, you'll understand. And I know we haven't been able to get into the shop to actually use the glaze, but it's really interesting. It's kind of redundant. Remember, in feldspar, what do we have? We have silica, flux, and kaolin. Right? And then look, the glaze repeats itself. Silica, calcium carbonate happens to be a flux, and kaolin. So, but putting it in these ratios, it gives the glaze the properties that we want. For example, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4 or 4, 3, 2, 1 Celadon glaze, which is a really reliable glaze. You see it's shiny, but it's not too shiny. You see it doesn't run at all. It's actually a really beautiful glaze. So in the module, I also have this all written out in more detail, but for some of you to follow along in a video and then have a document to go back to, it's more helpful for learning. So there you have it, the glaze lecture part 3. You will be responsible for knowing this 4, 3, 2, 1 Celadon, or 1, 2, 3, 4 Celadon recipe. So try to internalize it, ask questions, shoot me a note or an email. I'll be happy to get back to you. All right, good job.